Hey everybody, welcome back. Free Me TV as promised. As promised, man, I have a beautiful story today with Mr. Mordecai. Before we get into it and before I introduce Mr. Mordecai, I want to give you just a rundown on how I met this gentleman. So, as some of you may or may not know, I was in Atlanta the past weekend doing a little gig for uh, the final season of a show that's getting ready to come out. Everybody's waiting on this show, so um, I was up there and I was doing that, and in the process of waiting for my little gig to come up, I see this black gentleman walking around and he's offering people, drinks and helping people out. And I'm assuming that he's part of the crew, right? Now, I'm there as an opportunist myself, right? And that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about my podcast, nothing at that time. I'm thinking about, man, how can I get me some speaking lines? That's all I'm thinking about. So now I see this gentleman, right? And I'm walking by him, and he speaks to me first about my Indian tattoo. Asked if I was Cherokee. I said, yes, sir, I was. And I kept walking. So now I'm in the bathroom, and this gentleman comes in the bathroom. And I ask him, because in my mind now, I'm like, yeah, right. Now I'm going to get this dude, and I'm going to plug him, and I'm going to say, man, get me some speaking lines. Go holler at the people. You're part of the crew. Go hook me up, homeboy. So I ask him to break the ice now, right? I ask him to break the ice now. I say, man, what's going on, dog? I said, what do you do here? And what do you tell me, Mordecai? Gentleman comes in the bathroom, and I ask him, I can hear you, but I don't know if they can hear you. That's what I don't know. Okay, everybody. I believe I got it. I got it fixed. Mr. Mordecai, if you want to say something real quick so we can get a acknowledgement from the audience, they'll be so kind.
Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, world. What's up, Free Me TV, iHeartRadio fans, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, all
Bam.
my veterans.
We're in there. We're in. We're in like Flint, buddy.
There
Okay.
we go.
So they heard my story. So just to
They
recap,
did. You sure?
yeah, they heard my story. They don't want to hear that shit again. So just to recap, just to recap, right? My mindset was there. And when I asked you what you do, your response was what?
I'm a veteran and I do peer-to-peer support, one-on-one trauma counseling for mental health, veteran and their families, and first responders and their families, and anyone who deals with substance abuse. So I actually used the facility where Ozark was using the church hall. I used that same hall to do my groups and counseling sessions in. So throughout the week, and then boom, we just went into sharing each other's testimony story, just sharing each other's life book, and here we are. He asked me to share with him about my podcast, spiritual rehab. And shout out to all my fans who listen to that. Mom, if you listen, I appreciate your support. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, we talked about all various types of things. Once we got into each other's past about being incarcerated, being homeless, uh, relationships, um, just the struggle of dealing with trauma, dealing with yourself. Then we had a good spiritual conversation. So there, here we are now. So I'm just here to answer questions, and what I mean. I'll just share, man. So I thank God for being here. It's a pleasure. If it wasn't for God, I wouldn't even be here. period. So I thank my Lord and Savior Christ for allowing me to stay alive, to be able to just have this opportunity, man, to chop it up with you and how we're gonna grow together through business and everything. So appreciate it.
Amen. No question. Now, so when I hear this response from this gentleman, it took me completely off guard, right? Because I was not, I wasn't even in that frame of mind. I wasn't even expecting that from this man at all. And again, as I've said many times on my show, you always have to be conscious of signs. We're surrounded by signs at all times, and we're surrounded by opportunities at all times. You never know where an opportunity will come from, you know. And if I would have never spoke to this gentleman, if I would have just minded my own business, what happened would have never happened because I don't even know if I'm ever going to go to Atlanta again. So it's seeing opportunities for what they are and just opening up to people, being kind to people, saying hello, and you never know where that'll take you. So when I heard this, as you heard Mordecai explain, we got into detail. I explained who I am, what I am, and what my mission is. And of course, he fell right in line, right in line with that. Um, so I wanted to bring Mr. Mordecai on to explain exactly who he is. I have no idea what he's been through in his life, but I can tell that he's been through a lot of trauma, and I want that expressed. So I'm going to be learning right along with my guests what exactly Mordecai has done, what he's been through, who he is. So please start with your name. I mean, where does Mordecai come from? How are you named? What is it? How is it relevant with your family structure and so on?
I am just, first of all, I'm a child of God, like we all are. But I'm a child of a minister. Um, my dad's an ordained elder, but I'm also a child of a combat veteran. My dad did 20 years in the Air Force. Um, my mother, who is just a brilliant woman who does many things. She taught me etiquette. She educated me before even being educated. But my mom's a very spiritual woman as well, very God fearing woman. So where the name comes from is, obviously, from the book of Esther in the Bible. And so, just according to my dad, and, between them is that, that's the name that God wanted, as well as my mom, wanted me to be a boy anyway when I was in her womb. 'Cause my mom, according to her too, she almost miscarried me. So yeah, that's where Mordecai comes from. And heavy lies the crown, I must say. But it's a worthy name to grow into. I never really used to like it too much. Excuse me if I'm looking away. The rain is beautiful today. I'm looking out the window while sitting here in my apartment, so it's a pretty cool setting. But yeah, that's where it was
Now, as a child going through school, did you have trouble with that name?
since day one.
What kind of trouble?
I'm the oldest of three boys, so shout out to my brother Eric and my brother Ethan. My brother is actually doing some long-term time right now. He's been down 16 years in North Florida, but I get to talk to him, so I just always want to make sure that everyone knows that I never forget him and I love him. Maybe one day, my voice will reach the walls and he can always hear that. But we do talk, so I thank God that we're able to talk now. So being, the oldest of three boys, um, I mean, that's responsibility in itself. you know, watching out for your brothers, helping them when they get into trouble, taking the licks for them if you don't want to see them get the licks, giving licks. According to my name, I got bullied a lot. My parents, we were very, very structured. Um, my dad was very stern and strict, sometimes a little bit overboard, but it's still made me the man who I am today. Definitely had a part in making me the man I was able to become and being able to go into the Marine Corps and graduate, and come out of that as well. But yeah, we always moved around a lot. We traveled a lot and in many different churches and watching my dad sing and perform and us performing and being involved in church. Also just always being the new kids in school. But it's one thing to be the new kid and then you're the new kid that, your parents dress you, for success. We were very casual with hand-me-down looks, but they very made sure try to make sure we're provided for and looked presentable, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it did cause us to be teased a lot. And my name did cause people to want to just, get on my nerves. Thought they could push me around or thought whatever they think about when they hear Mordecai. It was definitely about messing my name up, calling me different names, trying to jump me in hallways because I was quiet, but I was nice. But I was also very intelligent, still am. But a lot of different scenarios when you're moving from city to city. I think the hardest times of a child was when I lived in Washington, D.C. Short period of time, but that was a different shock of being a kid and being hated by your own.
Mm.
When you think like I was going to D.C., first of all, we thought it would be the safest place to live because because the president's there and the White House, all this. We never saw any of that before, and we thinking we're going, and it was completely opposite of that. Very, very being around a lot of angry, young, angry black children like me. We were brought up to be very universal in getting along with anybody. Definitely didn't understand what racism was because we didn't practice that. Didn't want to understand it. Wasn't only knew it was aware because you realize how people treat you. But I've probably been hated more by my own than whites. And I think that hurts. It hurts a lot worse. So I kind of got used to that, but then it turned me into more of an angry child. Plus, we were also dealing with issues at home. So, learn how to just roll with the punches real early in life.
You said that you were more hated by your own than the whites just
Yeah.
because of your name.
My name, the way I dressed, the way I looked. Being smart wasn't enough. It was almost like being smart was being a square. Speaking properly was frowned upon. So that added the bullying as well because then they think that you think you're better than them, and it's not even that. I'm just here in school learning just like you. I just retain the information and apply it. And I'm trying to get out of here just like you, but it causes a lot of friction. But then I was also athletic. So I was also able to get my respect when it came to recess time or PE, because I was track and all this and that. So, then you get that hated on because you're the best out there, or I'm just being me. And I just always just be me, just doing me. But you get tired of fighting after a while, man. I've given some beatings. I've taken a whole lot of them myself, but me and my brothers, we stuck together. We stuck together. So we were like our own little crew. The Miller boys, we were like our own crew, man. We looked after each other. So
The first time you lashed back, how old were you against the bullying?
like really lashed back, I would say about 7 years old, 7, 8 years old, about to be 8. Um, really start lashing back towards my parents. I say like mostly my dad, wanting to be more violent towards him because of the abuse. I would say 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade. I was starting to threaten my dad.
Mm.
I didn't like the way he was putting his hands on us. Didn't like the way he spoke to my mother. Didn't like the hypocrisy between what he was standing for and what he was doing in his own home.
Mm.
So I thought, being the oldest, that I had the right to threaten his life as well, because I always, a lot of times, thought my life was threatened by his. So it was 2 different types of lashings.
I did a short episode um called Driving Thoughts, and I've only done one episode. As I'm driving around, sometimes I just have thoughts, and I want to share them. And on this one particular day, my thoughts were on hypocritical parents and how they affect us children. This do as I say and not as I do type attitude. My father was very much the same way, and it left me confused. And then again, I never had anybody to really talk about or understand why was it different? Why can you do what you're telling me not to do? You know what I mean? There was never none of that talk. It was just always because I'm adult, boy, and you do what I say, and then later on I would just see him doing exactly what he told me not to do. So it was very confusing for me. You know what I'm saying? And it did
Yeah,
drive anger in me. So I can relate to that.
yeah. But like I really thank God for my mom because see, my mom is a writer, wonderful writer, and growing up, one thing I will definitely say my dad was very strict about was us reading. Whether he, beat that in us or preached that to us, either way, I understood that reading was going to empower me. My mother really was very adamant about us, being literate. And so I always turned to like my notebook. I always turned to poetry. That was like the best way for me to really express myself. So a lot of times that, and then of course, I always really dig at least get the concept of praying.
Mm.
You know, which even now when I'm going through what I'm going through right now, it seems if you can get that down as being like a main coping mechanism, then that'll probably keep you, and it probably would have kept me from doing a lot of things I got into. But being, excuse me, being born militant and then going into the Marine Corps, the Marines really did a number on me. But there was always some positive out there with that. And then me and my brothers, man, we had each other. I thank God for my brothers. They always made me feel important. I know that they needed me, and I like it being dependent on and trying to do the best I could to help them and talk with them and be there for them and protect them because there's something about being needed and appreciated as an older brother that really made me want to keep going.
Well, I mean that's what family's supposed to be for, to help us get through those times, man, and there's a lot of us that don't have that. I didn't have that. You know what I mean? I have an older brother, and my older brother had his own insecurities that he would take out on me, which would double my insecurities because I was getting it not only from my father, but from my brother as well. You know, um, I was bullied a lot, and I was so deep in my shell because my brother used to beat the shit out of me so bad that he had broke my spirit. I had no confidence, you know, and I used to get bullied so bad, and I would never fight back. And as my coping mechanism, I just learned instead of getting angry and showing these people that they're affecting me, I'll just laugh at them. You know what I mean? I'll just laugh with them and laugh at them and just
Right.
completely flip the script on them. And I guess that was kind of my defense mechanism. So instead of getting mad because I've done that and I experienced that and I knew that I wasn't going to fight, at that particularly young age, um, I had to do something because I was constantly bullied. I had a ragamuffin ear that kind of hangs off the side of my face, so people were always teasing me about my ear. They would find, bullies are bullies and they're going to find things to
Right.
bully you
Right.
about, you know.
Yeah, I get that. Man. I get that.
And
I had crooked teeth growing up too. So
they're going to find things, you know what I'm saying? And
right.
and at first I used to, man, I used to sweat. I'd be sweating in class, man, trying to cover up my ear or sit at the desk like this. And it didn't matter. They would still, you brought more attention to yourself,
Right.
you know? So eventually I just came to the point to where, I mean, some of the crap they said was funny, you know, and I would laugh. And then they would be like, man, I never seen anybody laugh when they get made fun of. And I would tell them, you know what? I mean, it's funny. What can I do? If it's funny, I'm gonna laugh. And it changed, you know. So I guess in a way, I found a way to stick up for myself, to stand up for myself, and in an alternative fashion, which I still use. I still implement that same technique today. So
All right.
how as a child did you go from being bullied and lashing out? Did you ever have a transition or an understanding of what was happening or why it was happening?
Um, you know, my dad, my dad used to box, and my dad. One thing we all had like this love for was like at least watching like the action movies and fighting movies, kung fu movies, martial art movies. So I developed having a big love for movies and always trying to impersonate Eddie Murphy and different people or just scenes in movies to get outside of myself. But my dad taught me how to fight. He taught us how to use our hands at a very young age. And I think eventually when I start learning how to apply that, there was a weird good feeling about being able to apply that pain to somebody else. Um, as far as if they're putting their hands on me or if they're threatened to, I would invite the invitation to meet you at recess
Mm,
or to meet you underneath the stairs. Because my dad at least gave me the confidence in knowing that you don't let nobody push you around. You try to walk away, but if it gets to that point, get the one with the most mouth. Sometimes it's more than one. My dad told me strategically how to make sure that I could defend myself, which made me a better defender for my brothers. And he showed all of us that. But when you're the oldest, you feel like you have to be a lot more equipped and being able to, physically solve a situation if it happens. But then that of course started turning more against him, where I was just like, if you're teaching me not to be fear any man and only fear God, then I didn't feel like it excluded him. Um, but that would be it. I wanted to be, if I was going to be the square looking Mordecai, then if it went hand to hand, then I wanted to let you know that I wasn't scared. So even if I got a beating, then I started, but I didn't go out without a fight, then I was starting to get respect for the fact that I wasn't just a pushover. So, I had to earn my respect in the street by, or in the school, or when I say the street, because sometimes it would go outside of the street. It would be, it would go a little bit extension in different neighborhoods. Or my brothers came to me and people were teasing them. And then, you start getting a reputation of don't mess with him. He ain't scared. Don't mess with his brothers. Or they got an older brother. He coming for you. So, it was
yeah.
kind of turning into that. You know what I'm saying? To where I was using whatever my dad did show me and just apply the fact that don't be walking in fear. So, that's how that got handled. But then even playing sports, man, if I went angry, I'll go in a baseball game and just hit a bunch of home runs. I'll go in a baseball game and make sure, I got everybody out who I wanted to get out. I encourage my teammates. I would channel my energy more into my athletic abilities. Whether it come to long jump or something, I might have been real mad about something. I said, I'm going to be the best on this track field today. I'm going to make sure I get first place. I'd be so angry just to I get first place. So I started channeling that into my sports, um, which made me feel better because it pushed me to be my best in other areas where nobody hated me. Nobody they appreciated Mordecai, but my skill, maybe not as the person, but they appreciated my ability to win. So I channeled it to become a winner.
So, and how would you describe your childhood in one word?
Very complex.
Complex.
Yeah, it's complicated.
What from your childhood do you bear with you now?
My relationship with God.
Mm, yeah.
I
So,
mean, that's the only way I really made it through. You know, I went out of depression so much too as a kid, in and out, in and out. I was a very depressed kid.
what was driving the depression as a kid?
The lack of approval from my father.
That seems to be all our issues, man.
Yeah,
So now as an adult though, do you still see it the same way that that it wasn't approval, but maybe it was that your father was just trying to make you tough because he knows what being a black man in America is? Or was it
yeah, I
something
see it.
different?
Um, well, I also know my dad. He is a combat veteran. You know what I'm saying? My dad was a military police officer. He did many things in the military. You know, I find out more now as we're older and we do have a relationship and we're able to talk. Well, I mean, but obviously too, you know, my dad had PTSD. Well, strongly then. You know, I'm sure dealing with PTSD had a lot to do with it. He probably didn't have a name for it.
It was unrecognized, yeah.
It was unrecognized. You know, he had a father. You know, and he came from a family that also would beat him. You know, so I mean, between generational and then being militant and then seeing the things he saw and things, I'm sure my dad at times got flashbacks and all that. And there was things that maybe us as a family triggered him, and then he was uncontrollable. I mean, the Holy Spirit's not always inside of us, you know. And if you want to put it in a word, like you know, people would try to act like because they teach the word that it's always in them. It's
Mhm.
not. So you know, so at times he got in his flesh and he would get angry and maybe they just even know how to really express himself, be emotional, you know, or feel. And you know, as a black man or as a man, period. But if we're going to just culturally speak, as a black man, we're not taught to really express our feelings. Just take the beatings and keep going, or like they say, take the lickings and keep on ticking. Because that's our heritage, right? That we just gotta get beat, and then eventually that flows into you know our families. You know what I mean? We think we do that to our kids, or we do that to our wives. You know, whatever, verbally. You know, we you know verbally or physically. You know, it's like it's a horrific normal.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, homie, because I've heard that my whole life, right? Black people don't black people don't talk about their feelings. Black people don't communicate about their feelings. Black people don't go to counseling, and you damn sure ain't gonna see a black person in front of a white therapist opening up about their problems. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
you're taught this as a child that just suck it up, buttercup, right? But now, how are you dealing with that? Because you're bringing God into it. So when did God become noticeable in your life as a figure that you could rely on to get you through some of these times?
It took for my dad to, let's see, in high school, me and my dad got into a physical altercation. It wasn't the first time. Um, and I wasn't able to come home.
Mm,
I came home thinking I was going to come home and my bags were already out. Um, and thank God for the friends and all, you know, that helped me through all that. Shout out to everybody who at Gaither High School or in Tampa period has supported me through my ugly times, even before dumping me down the line for becoming a cocaine addict. But I was locked up at 18 in Hillsborough County for putting my hands on a Caucasian male at the time who was very racist. And two violent crimes of aggravated battery. Was the other one like it was like a burglary thing because I did it in his house. Made it my business to find out where he lived and went into, where the door was open. So I just ran in, past his mother, ran in and gave him one. And then by the time I got back to that home where I was actually staying at, a friend of mine who I played football with, the Gothi family, and his dad was a Marine, had a big impression on why I wanted to become a Marine, by the way. But anyway, yeah, I ended up going to jail. The police officers, they arrested me in front of them. And that family was also a Caucasian family. So, not all of us are bad, no matter what culture you are. There's good and bad fruit in all the trees.
Right.
So, but anyway, I ended up being there, ended up getting out on bail because, students and peers raised money to bond me out, cover that, get me out of that situation. But the judge, of course, was just ready to send me up the river.
Mm.
But because of the testimonies of the other students and peers and teachers, I believe it was about 50 people, if I'm correct. I mean, I'm still trying to, sometimes my memory's not the best. But I believe it was at least about 50 people, I think they asked about what kind of person I was. So I barely graduated. I almost didn't graduate because of that. But I got me out of there. Ended up the charges got dropped. The white boy didn't even show up. Matter of fact, I never saw him again after hitting him. After I hit him, I never saw him again. Never saw him again. Not even for me to want, even later down the line, wanted to apologize to him for that. I never got that opportunity to reconcile. But I did obviously end up, I guess, showing him what he thought of me anyway. But I was just very angry. I didn't appreciate that disrespect. And there was a lot of other things that I was dealing with. Like I said, home was accumulating a lot of heat. I lost my scholarship for college that I received in 6th grade in Washington, D.C. because my grades were starting to also drop. Just because of, the effects of the household and me just stopping, just doing the bare minimum, didn't want to excel at the highest anymore. Just doing just doing the bare and also working a job, stuff like that. But I was locked up with a dude that was killed for murdering his wife.
Mm.
When they threw me in the cell with this other guy, my first cellmate was a Caucasian dude that killed his wife with an axe. And I was like, my God, how did I get here?
Hmm.
So,
How old were you when you were confronted with that?
you mean as far as being in that situation?
Yeah.
I was 18. I was 18 years old. Yeah,
So
18.
let me ask you this here. How would you deal with that situation now if you had an individual that was in front of you, antagonizing you the way that that individual was that day?
In a counseling session, just as calm as we're talking, if I was in prison and it was in a situation where it was threatening, it depends what jungle you're in. Depends on the jungle, bro.
So after all of that altercation, you're 18 years old, you're going through all of that. You're in a very dark and angry place, right? Do you have any motivation? Do you have any goals? Do you have any what is your mindset as far as, or are you just living day to day?
At that time, um, I was just really lost. I didn't. Yeah, I asked God to release me, but I also was asking God, God, I was like, you call me Mordecai, and look where I am. I don't blame this on my dad, even though I was mad because I was like, okay, well, maybe if I wasn't kicked out the house, I wouldn't be doing crazy stuff. But it was so many different thoughts. I realized where my anger had gotten me, and I was just as sober when I did that, because I started drinking and smoking weed, young. But I wasn't drunk that day or whatever. I was definitely drunk with anger. That's definitely possible to be drunk with. And so I definitely wasn't consciously, I didn't care. I didn't care anymore. I snapped, but I hurt somebody in the process. Um, According to what was said, I hurt him pretty bad. I didn't see. Um, but the conversation that I had with the guy that killed his wife was pretty interesting. He was actually a pretty nice guy, and he snapped too. He could relate. Uh, he really couldn't even explain like how he really got there to do that because it happened so fast. But he regretted it so bad, and we actually prayed together every day that I was in there with him. Um, I don't understand how that happened, but I think it was because he would see me reading the Bible. And the guy at that time, he was like 39, like a year older than what I am right now. So he was not even 40 yet. And he ended up going to prison, of course. But he told me that I was going to make better decisions and do better in life, and that at least I had people, and peers that were trying to help me. But I also remember my dad coming to visit me and asking me what I was going to do with my car. I was like, dude, what I'm going to do with my car? That you coming to visit me, asking me about what I'm going to do with my car, and here I am thinking that you're actually going to come talk to me,
right,
and tell me that it's going to be okay, or maybe even you know what I'm saying, apologize for putting me out, something.
But he was worried about your car.
He was worried about like my car, where it was going to go, like who was going to have it, whatever. Because too, I was on his insurance or whatever. I was paying it, I was paying him and all that, but I didn't give a damn about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At that time, I'm like, dude, I'm locked up. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you even visiting for, really? Man.
So how long were you locked up then?
I stayed in there for about like two weeks, and I was bonded out. Almost 2 weeks, I bonded out. They came up with like 2,500 and 25,000 was my bail. Um, and then a friend of mine whose dad was pretty, well, not pretty, but he was rich, and he ended up taking care of the rest of my collateral cash, and then ended up sending a limo for me to get out of jail with my friends. But then they had a big shindig at his mansion and stuff. It was cool, and I guess I just also made a good impression on his wife, who I used to volunteer and work with in the student affair office. So shout out to the Malou family. They were a blessing in my life. I didn't even know his dad. I knew his son. Well, I knew of his son, but I really knew his wife because we just connected about conversating about just life and everything. And he said, "My wife told me I had to get you out of here." So, um, that was God right there, of course.
Did you recognize that at that time?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So at this time, you already had an affinity, with God. You already had a relationship. Um, But so how did that? Where did that spawn at? Where did the relationship actually spawn at? Is what I guess I'm trying to. Was there an incident, or where was it that, or was you just always, was your family just raised that way to just always believe in God?
My parents always told me that I need to believe in God and believe in Christ and His power and His walk, and to know God for yourself. That they weren't always going to be there for me, of course, and that throughout life you be in situations where you will have to really get to know Him. Um, Certain situations of life will force that conversation between you and the Creator, identifying yourself with who you are, what you're here for. Um, I've been baptized at a young age. I didn't really understand that. I really felt like when I did that, it was not because I understood that that had to be the process of salvation, but I did it also because I was told to.
Yeah.
I didn't understand like even what happened to me when I received the gift of the Holy Spirit. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that it was even a gift. It happened and I was like, oh, okay. But I think again where I've been, I got locked up in Cobb County for terrorist threat. I got into an altercation with some police officers because in between that sandwich of going to the military, being discharged honorable from the Marine Corps, and then going into depression, start getting into drugs real heavy. And I was also promoter of clubs and nightlife, but really getting the drugs heavy. And I ended up slitting my wrist in my father's house in his bathroom, um, which was more on purpose. And that still didn't really work the way I thought it was going to. But I also didn't want to live anymore anyway. I was dealing with those type of thoughts and not sleeping well, having flashbacks. So um, even stemming from all the way from boot camp, just a killing mentality I didn't want to have anymore. With that type of switch, I'm an 0331 machine gunner, infantry. So just learning how to be trained to kill somebody in different ways is a crazy way of thinking. And then you mix that with being angry. It's like the default of how you want to handle every situation. And I ain't really like that type of thinking. So I just didn't want to live anymore. But that's what brought me to Atlanta, where my mom was actually staying in Marietta at that time.
Hmm.
She wasn't aware of my usage in cocaine. She was aware of, my drinking and smoking weed, but she wasn't aware that I was doing powder. Even before when she came to visit me, when she was going through some things herself to get away, she came down. I was actually even selling it for a little bit, not like on no big scale, but selling it to make it a party favor at times for me and dealing with females or just because I knew people like to party and they like to have it, and I got caught up in it. And she didn't know that. But when she came and got me, I was out of rehab. I got out of rehab. She came pick me up, brought me to Marietta. I lived with her. But then all that started coming out. So then, my mom had to deal with me accordingly as well. She wasn't supportive of that. Um, I'm gonna have to say, at that time, even being around a certain individual that my mom was married to at the time was actually it was not kind of, it was enabling it too. And
Hmm.
she didn't know that. She didn't know. She didn't know. And I wasn't man enough to tell her what was going on either. Because I was trying to, look out for him and you know how dope is look out for each other, trying to think you all cool and all. But at the end of the day, he gave me up. Um, but it came out anyway. You know what I'm saying? Things will be exposed when it happens. So I end up getting into a lot of legal trouble here. And then Cobb County's racist. I don't know what's
Well, so what age did you go into the Marines?
18. I was 18. I was 18 because right after I got out from being locked up, I entered the delayed entry program. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I definitely um, didn't have the grades to really go to college. I mean, I probably could have went to community college or whatever. But like I said, the family that I stayed with, his dad was a Marine, and then I was like, okay, I could just go in the military, get 20 years out of it, and then do something else, go to school and do something else in my life. So, but I didn't want to be the Air Force one because my dad was Air Force, and I was just like, I really wanted to even show him that I was tough for him by going to the Marine Corps. Um, it was all about we were always a lot of times trying to show my dad that I was better than him.
Mm. Always trying to earn his respect.
Yeah, I was trying to earn his respect, man. So I'm like, I go in the Marine Corps, show him how tough I am and all that. But then also just show myself how tough I was. I really needed to do something that was really going to challenge me to feel important.
Mm.
And I figured the Marine Corps would do that.
So you're going
Plus, I
into
love the uniforms.
so you're going into the Marine Corps, right, to prove a point of respect to your father. You're going in depressed, uh, unsure of yourself, and
That's crazy. My dad was calling me while we're doing the show.
oh yeah,
Yeah, who knows if he's watching or not? Shout out to you, Dad. Love you, man. I don't know if he's watching that, but
we spoke
he just
about.
tried to call me. That's crazy.
So
Heck yeah.
so yeah, you're angry, you're volatile, and you're going into the Marine Corps. Um, Tell me about boot camp, man. You go in and break it down to me, brother. What's the Marine Corps like? What's it like going to boot camp in the Marine Corps, man? Is it like that movie? What
Oh
was the
man.
movie? What's the movie? What's the movie?
Oh, what they call it? I can never get
Full
that
Metal
movie right.
Jacket.
Everyone talks. Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is it like that?
It's Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's they did a decent job, about putting that in the merit in the movies. You definitely do get people that are. I mean, of course, some of it was still Hollywood,
Of
but as
course,
far
yeah.
as the intensity and people wanting to either kill themselves or uh, being broken to where they want to quit. Uh, yeah, I was just complimenting my post on the other day. It
Tell
was
them about the
intense,
show,
bro.
man. Tell them about the show. Tell them to tune into the show, man. Send them the link. Send
I
them the link
don't.
to the
Let
show.
me see. I wonder if let me see. Let me see.
Get them on the show so he can hear you, man.
Hold on, man.
You got
Other people,
mom.
and
You
for
got
some
Mom
people, a
Dukes
whole
on
bunch
here.
of people right now are asking me about. Yeah, you see, mom, what she saying?
She ain't saying nothing. She quiet. She just listening. Mom Dukes.
She's saying a whole lot. She just ain't typing.
She just ain't typing.
She'll do it. Yeah, she just ain't typing. But I love my. You know what? That's why I really love my mom. I think if it wasn't for like, I mean, even when I was like in my dark times, and I'm gonna get back to what you were saying about the boot camp, but my mom was always there, man. Even though at times like I had got mad at her because I thought like she should have took up more for me when like Kennedy getting kicked out. But my mom was just very respectful for marriage, and maybe she was even a little scared of my dad. Maybe it was just like here the head whatever he said goes. You know, and I could never really blame her for that. So I couldn't stay mad at my mom long. I was for a little bit, but you know I get it. I get it, and I got it young. You know what I'm saying? And my mom, anytime she beat me, it was just because I deserved it. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like she just wanted to abuse me and she didn't. She just, hey, it was just telling her mama had to get you behind.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but as far as being there for me, get me out of rehab and not judging me and not making me feel like that I still wasn't like a worthy son.
Mm.
Um, she she's just always has been encouraging, always good for a hug, always good for um for compliment me.
Good
Just
job,
compliment
Mom
me.
Dukes.
Tell me,
Good
yeah,
job.
man.
Good job, Mom
Mom
Dukes. Good job.
telling me I'm handsome when I was ugly. You
Ah,
know, promoting me to be a model. My mom really pushed me to get into modeling. I did that for a few years too. You know what I'm saying? That changed me for the better, for the good. That was good for my confidence too as well.
yeah.
You know, my mom always believing that I could be in the entertainment industry or somewhere, not just because of personality, but just because of look and I could get paid for being presentable, and I try to keep my body up and stuff. So she just always found something good to say about me, not to make me feel ugly, even when I was always trying to be ugly to myself or feeling that way.
That's beautiful,
So,
man. That's what moms do,
um,
man.
good
Moms
ones.
know. Moms know how hard this shit is.
Yeah, she definitely does. So,
So boot camp.
but yeah, so boot camp. Yeah, I say boot camp. First of all, the getting yelled at, it was, it bothered me, and it triggered me. It made me think of my dad a lot. But that also is what pushed me to make sure I passed. Because my dad, he liked to yell, you know,
Mm.
he liked to yell a lot. Not just because he even went on the pulpit or preaching, but he, he liked to yell. So, I mean, even in that aspect, when they would get yelled at, but they're very intense with it, and they will call you everything in the book to try to diminish you, to keep you from performing.
Mm.
And then the physical aspect of it, I never rappelled off buildings, towers. I swam, but I didn't have to swim with gear. I mean, there were so many different obstacles to learn how to accomplish at a fast rate, even though I knew I was going to be there for 3 months,
Mm.
with barely having anything, the bare minimum of food, and it's just another intense way of surviving. I saw people in there even, that died because of the intensity on their body, or maybe they weren't in good health and they got through. However it was an intense level of stress, which was how life can be,
Mm.
very stressful, but so a lot of times I compare life in boot camp to even just give myself the confidence that I can get through it. But I got funny stories about boot camp, and I wouldn't care about talking about it now because they can't like indict me or nothing about it. But just to have something to eat, there was a lot of people that would try to get caught in going inside the chow halls late at night, like really using the skills you're learning to break into a chow hall and get food. I was woken up one night with a cheesecake, and I wondered how that happened. And
What do
then
you
I
mean?
partook on that.
What do you mean you was woken up with a cheesecake?
I was woken up with a piece of dessert, bro. You don't have that's like the stuff that the drill instructors eat and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? When they eat food, we definitely weren't eating cheesecake and cookies and Subway sandwiches and Krispy Kreme donuts
Okay.
unless you stole it. And in the military, stealing's just not allowed, bro.
Right.
But a couple of my recruits at that time were waking up in the middle of the night and paying fire watch to count them as being counted for. And they were, technically going into the chow hall and stealing food to eat late at night because we weren't eating. We weren't eating like that. We were eating, but we were nibbling, you know what I'm saying? So we were hungry. I mean, hungry enough to do what eventually I ended up doing myself.
Mm.
So I did engage in that type of activity to feed me and the other recruits. But we started paying for it because uh, started gaining weight, and that was making the training a little bit tougher because I started feeling the weight. Other guys just, yeah, you're eating at night, but you got to work that off the next day. You start feeling like you're not moving how you're able to move, and then you start actually appreciating the fact of why you eat portions. But eating late at night and gaining weight, and then
Straight carbs,
thinking
probably too.
yeah, and then think you're gonna perform. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The next day,
Feeling sluggish as
you
hell.
know, crazy. But what ended that was some other recruits got caught on the side of the island, and so I told them kill the mission.
Mm.
Say kill it before we get caught. And I would, they respected me. You know what I'm saying? I was a leader in boot camp anyway. I was a squad leader for a while. At that time, I was actually squad leader, but I wasn't squad leader when I graduated. But I got PFC real quick in infantry school. But I told them I was like, this is dead. Forget about it. Everybody was just gonna work, keep finishing this out. It was fun while it lasted, but if we don't stop now, we're done. And I didn't want to be booted out and walk in that type of dishonor and, piss my mom off or anything like that. If that had to happen, me coming home like that, you know what I'm saying? Like getting kicked out of boot camp because I wanted to steal Krispy Kreme donuts and cheesecake at night.
Is this the first time that you're really away from home, away from your mom, away from your dad, by yourself on your own, making your own choices, doing your own thing?
Yeah, yeah, no, from home, like I said, when I was still in high school, I was still staying with, like, I stayed in two different households where they were my friends and their parents took me in because I couldn't come home. I even tried to ask my dad. I tried to come back home. I did, but my dad didn't want me back.
But you still were around parental figures, you know.
Right, yeah, for the figures. But as far as like being on my own, yeah, yeah, Marine Corps was like that was it. That was the first time ever like that. But it was I had work ethic and stuff like that. I've been working jobs, paying bills and stuff in high school, and all that. But yeah, being on my own, a whole nother state, um, only
Nothing
having a
to fall
girlfriend
back
that
on.
right,
Yeah, that's the
nothing to fall
thing.
back on.
Nothing to fall back on. You're thrust into the world, and you're thrust into the Marine Corps, and you're there to figure shit out. So after the 2 weeks, like how does graduation go
Um, as far as graduation for boot camp,
from boot camp to
first
where?
of all, yeah, it's 13 weeks. First of all, it's
Oh, it's
13
13
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah, man, boot camp is Marine Corps boot camp is the longest and the toughest. Bro. You
I
know what I'm
always thought it
saying?
was
Like,
2 weeks, man. I thought it was 2 weeks, or is that the SEAL training? I don't know,
no,
man.
you kick that to the Air Force, I believe. There, that week boot camp my dad did.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the Army. Shout out to my dad, my other dad. William Van Hook's Army veteran. So I'm not sure of their length of time either, but everybody knows the Marine Corps boot
13
camp training.
weeks. Okay.
13 weeks. Yeah, but that graduation was, hey man, I earned that. I earned that every inch of it, every blood, sweat, and tear of it. I earned it. I earned that. I'll always wear that experience. Nobody can ever take that from me. Can nobody ever even tell me I didn't do it because I did it, and the government knows it. My mom didn't recognize me. She walked right by me. She was at the graduation. Her and my dad came, but she walked right by me. Like she didn't recognize me. I had, put on some muscle weight. I had been transformed. So,
Mm.
and my demeanor was definitely. I had a killer look. I definitely didn't walk out of there with a smile. I still have that bearing, which is hard to get rid of. That that I'll kill you bearing.
What was it that switched you? I mean, what part of the training does that to you that takes you from that just that angry little boy to a stone cold killer in 13 weeks?
I think it's when you get pushed so far that you really think there's no other choice but to understand that this is it and I'm not going anywhere. If I don't learn this, I'm not going to get out. If I don't learn this, I'm not going to survive. And there is also a possibility that I can die in here. There is that possibility.
It's the same. I mean, that's the same. That's the
And
same
because,
mentality.
yeah, and the thing is I caught pneumonia. I almost didn't graduate there because I actually ended up with walking pneumonia at boot camp, and I
Mm.
had bed rest for like a week. And then I still had to watch my recruits drill and everything like that. So I had to play catch up. So just to still graduate on time, so it was more intense for me to have to catch up, beat pneumonia, and then what I'm saying, still graduate with my class because I wasn't trying to recycle. I wasn't trying to. Nah, and at the end of the day, it's something about being willing to accept that you know I will not be broken, and even if I am, I'm not going to let anybody know. I'm just going to rise above that, and that and then if God put me there, then that means I could do it. If my feet landed on that island, it's because I was meant to graduate, and I excelled. I did things I never thought I'd do before, and my confidence is gained It just gained, and since somewhere down the line after that, I lost that confidence. But I still, as a grunt, you learn that you just grunt, man. You just eat mud if you got to eat mud. You dig a hole if you got to dig a hole. I mean, you kill if you got to kill. I mean, but I think it was more about killing the old me. I had to kill myself, even to become something that they trained me to become. And then just throughout life, you're always going to have to kill something of yourself that will kill you first if you ain't careful. And I think becoming a Marine was the best thing in my life, even though I'm not getting paid for my PTSD or, for the reason why I was discharged, which I developed PFS in my knees, which is now developing into a lot of arthritis, and I have a lot of different injuries, from the training, infantry training. Even after that, becoming a machine gunner is very intense. Disassembling machine guns and weapons in a certain period of time, under fire, under stress, being able to still efficiently perform in warfare situations. So, you
Did you see any action?
I got discharged before going across the water. The only thing I saw was the beginning of 9/11. I'm considered like the beginning of the global war on terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was actually supposed to actually go to Okinawa and then because I wanted to become a sniper. And then I was supposed to go to Afghanistan, and I didn't. And that was one of the reasons why my when I got injured, and then I was told that I just didn't matter to the Marine Corps anymore. Is how I took it, because I wanted to get in any other field. I said, "Well, change my MOS." No, no, no. And I think because of 9/11 happening, machine gunners are a very light, small number. And they said that they would need me, and if I wasn't 100%, I was broke. They call me a broke Marine.
Mm.
A broke Marine. They call me broke. That crushed me. I did physical therapy, tried to get back right, and the doctors were saying, it's just not treatable. You know what I mean? Your knees are going to get worse. Your PT scores are dropping. And, then I just felt worthless. And I felt worthless for a long time after that. Because I definitely didn't have any plan after. My plan was 20 years. That's all the plan I had.
Mm.
Whatever they told me to do for 20 years, that was my plan. And when that got shortened to less than 4 years.
Mm. So now you're discharged. You put all of this into going through this boot camp. How long of a length of time was it between boot camp and discharge?
uh, right under a little under 3 years, so almost reached the 3 year mark. Um, so I was like 62, 63 days of a 3 year mark. I spent almost 9 months in physical therapy. Um, yeah.
Mm.
So I didn't reach my full 4 year term. I did was promoted. I was promoted, before I got injured, like right after boot camp, and then like my first less than 30 days of being in infantry school, I was promoted to PFC because of my skills in learning and being efficient in 50 caliber, and how I was testing and how I was excelling so fast. And then this was just, them telling me I was just taking the training very seriously. Um, at that, after that, that's all I wanted to do was kill something, but be the best. I mean, because even that too, I was brought up to be the best in everything.
Would you say you became bloodthirsty, trigger happy, all that?
Trigger happy. Really, my thing was I really love the knife exercises, the hand-to-hand combat. And that was really because, like I said, me and my dad and growing up and my brothers, martial arts and stuff like that. So learning how to use my hands and my legs and my elbows and knives, and learning how to, use that to take the enemy's life. And the enemy means, I guess, in whatever is the threat, foreign and domestic. Um, that was the
And
coolest
you're
part.
told, and you're told what that enemy is, right? You're told what that threat is.
Yeah, anything that's a threat to this country or anything that's a threat to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, because even even Marines, we get in fights with each other. Sometimes we all got that ego to the point where even when you get in a fight with a Marine, like one Marine just may hate the fact that you're excelling, and they may get out in public in a bar, and then there's a female that's hollering at you. Now, we may end up getting a fight because we're drunk or whatever like that. But then as soon as someone else starts to mess with one of us, and they're not a Marine, we'll start fighting each other and then attack them. So and yeah, it's a devil dog situation. We got different names: devil dog, jarhead,
Hmm.
you know, um, leatherneck, you know. So I mean, but you really get a devilish way of thinking, and as far as just it's just a violent way of thinking, man. I mean, you're just ready to do something so wrong to somebody if they wrong you, and it's such a hard thing to turn off.
Yeah, I understand. Now, um, you didn't make it the 4 years. Is that significant towards anything?
Yeah, me, because I didn't feel like I finished. I mean, even if I wasn't going to do 20, at least finish 4 year my contract. You know what I'm saying?
So that's what was weighing on you was the fact that you're being told that there's nothing that can be done. You're out of here. You're a broken Marine. So after that gets finalized, what happens? Where do you go? What do you do?
They put me on a Greyhound bus and sent me back to Tampa, Florida.
Just like
Now
that.
I'm just like that. There wasn't no transition and how to mentally decompress.
How long did that take, that process?
Man,
From
they
being
kicked me out
told,
faster than they kicked me out faster than it took for them to let me in.
dang,
It's faster. It was a faster honorable discharge. Like that administration, it was faster for me to be discharged than it was for me to go through the process to become one.
did you say dishonorable discharge?
No, I have an honorable. Honorable.
Oh, honorable. Okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah, no, I got an honorable discharge.
So that's it, man. They used you. There's nothing you can do for them. They're done with you. Goodbye. You're back in Tampa, Florida now. Um, with a whole new game plan that you weren't even prepared for.
Yeah. Only thing I knew is that I better get to work. My parents taught me about just at least getting a job. I had a job in high school. I knew work ethic. I understood that. Grinding, everything like that. But I had some money in the bank. I still have some money in the bank. Between boot camp and then getting paid. Because I'm getting paid through all that. Feel me? I have some stacks in the bank, but I did set up a little life for myself. I ended up becoming a roommate with one of my best friends, who at that time was my best friend, and then we, our relationship, our friendship, was ended up being fractured and broken. And but I ended up getting into my own place. And, y'all, uh, did attempt getting into the whole modeling thing. My mom started helping me find different casting calls and things like that. I had a girlfriend at the time, very beautiful Puerto Rican girl at the time. But anyway, I ruined that friendship. And that relationship, even just when I came back from boot camp, she knew I wasn't the same. Matter of fact, I scared her. I was scared her because I couldn't sleep and the things I was saying in my sleep and stuff like that. So the trauma of PTSD and then the how can I say it's not normal to be taught the things that they teach you. You know what I mean? It's just you know. But anyway, I was always like lashing out, getting angry fast. It didn't take much to set me off. But then I started drinking real heavy. Smoking weed a lot. Hadn't reached the cocaine part of it yet. I was in sales, sold cell phones. I've always really been good in connecting with people, like putting my issues or hiding them, which you learn in church too. You learn how to hide yourself, make it seem like everything's okay. So I learned that pretty good when I was a kid, but it never really helped me eventually.
Hmm.
because of course it's just compression. But then the Marine Corps, they just numb you, bro. Ain't no feeling nothing. You know, you can't feel anything to kill somebody. So it's almost like practicing like becoming having a hard heart in a way. But I've always just had a heart for people. I love people. I really do. I just had a hard time really loving myself for a long time because I ain't like what I was becoming.
Mm.
But I could love others better than myself. So yeah, I got into sales and stuff, promotions, whatever was going to help me be able to make money. And the VA rejected me when I tried to go like talk about my mental because I didn't have a disability rating. So since I didn't have a disability rating, like they didn't want to deal with me. So I was just trying to just working this job, trying to fit in too. You're coming back, from high school and people are, already somewhat still thinking you're that cool homecoming king guy,
Mm.
or they think you're tough because they know you got out of the Corps, and all that. At the end of the day, man, we were all jacked up. Everybody just doing drugs and partying. That college life I was caught up in, and I never even went to college. Didn't even know I could maybe even use a GI Bill then to go to college. Um, Fast forward,
Well, that's
you know,
that was my question. Like they, the military, as they're putting you out, they didn't offer any solutions. Hey, listen, man, this is available to you. Let's
no
get you into
resources,
this
bro.
program. Nothing. Just
Nothing,
mm.
nothing. And when you come home, man, you just another nigga, man, at the end of the day to society. I'm gonna say that straight up.
They send you home like a prisoner. I mean, that's how they sent. That's how they
It's
sent
the
me
same.
home.
It's the same way, bro.
They put me on a
Same
bus and
way,
sent my
dog.
ass to Tampa and told me good luck.
same thing. I hope your DD-214 works for you, there, buddy.
Yeah. So,
Because they don't treat you honorably when you get out. When you sit down in an interview, man, and someone asks you, "So what did you learn from the military that can help you apply for this position?" And you're like, "Oh man," And
I
then
could
they
show
say,
you.
"Oh
I
yeah,
could
so you
show you
just,"
better than I could tell you.
and then they just like, "Oh, so you just know how to kill people." I hear your Marines are crazy. That's how they talk to you. It's like even having a record of being a Marine is just as bad as having a record of being a felon.
Yeah, especially with all of this going on now. All of these shootings and whatnot. People are feared of our military now, our soldiers. Again, I don't even want to get into that too much, but again, this is what
Right,
media is doing to us is
right.
is creating stigma that's creating a roadblock for you, Mr. Mordecai, because now they're seeing you as some deranged PTSD uh, killer that I don't want these people in, I don't want this kind of dude around, my office, you know. What happens if
Yeah,
he's not doing his job and I have to let him go? I don't want to go let this guy go, so they'd rather not even put themselves in that position, you know.
right.
And they'll smile in your face and say, "Well, we just, we think that you're not suitable
You're
for the
not. You're
job
not
at
a
this
good
time.
fit.
You're not a good fit."
You're not a good fit. Yeah.
So, how is your confidence level at this time? I mean, do you still feel like you could succeed and you could still move forward, or are you just getting to the point to where you're like getting just completely discouraged?
At that time it was just, excuse me, I'm just gonna get a charge here. But yeah, of course I'm getting discouraged, man. And then still, man, trying to look to see how my pop can help. You know, you know. I watch my dad, right? This used to like just really upset me.
Mm.
I watched my dad like, and then he would brag and talk about. Well, I don't know if he was bragging, but to me, I take it as bragging because whatever you say that you were doing for other young men, you weren't doing for me.
Mm.
So being a mentor and all, and doing all this other stuff, and you got a son right here. Matter of fact, you got three boys.
Mm. So tell me about the cocaine, man. When did the cocaine start coming in and affecting your life?
Like I said, being in the scenes of um let me make sure I prompt this right. Being in the scene of that nightlife, man. And for a long time I wasn't dealing with that. I even see people do it now. I was just, eventually I turned into that go-to guy. If you have my number, uh, just being able to connect. Hey Mordecai, you know anybody that does this? Yeah, I got you. Here's your number. Tell them I sent you. Hey Mordecai, can you hook me up? If I did something, cell phones or wires or whatever, yeah, I could hook you up. But even if it was like, hey, after a while, turning, hey, what club? Where you gonna be at tonight? What kind of specials you got going on? Hey, well, can you ain't gonna be there tonight? Can you still call the club owner and tell them to hook me up, VIP? Ooh, yeah. Tell them I sent you. What's up? He'll give you a special. Tell them to put it on my tab, even though I wasn't there. Or after a while, then too, hey, wait, Mordecai, where can I get the best weed, bro? And then eventually it turned into, where can I get the best coat?
Mm.
And even though I didn't do it, you know what I'm saying, I knew where to get it. And then eventually, mine's happened more in like a sexual type of episode where, it was tempted to me from a female to just do it off her body. I thought it was just going to be one time just to have a fun night. And it turned into a deep hole, but it was a fun night.
Well, cocaine's fun, and I'm not, I'm not again, I'm not putting it out there as something to do. I'm not
To
glamorizing it.
glorify,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? But I am a firm believer, again, in responsibility and knowing what it is exactly that you're getting into and understanding what it is and responsible use. But we don't do that when we get into the drugs because there's no education there. We're not educated about it in school. We just see it periodically and we learn about these things as we go, and
Yeah.
cocaine is
And then
fun. I
you
mean,
hear about it. Excuse me. You heard about it too, like in the music and everything
sure,
you listen to and all that. And
just
then they
hints
make it sound
around,
like it's
yeah.
fun. Yeah, they make it sound like it's fun. And then you see people doing it like, oh, they're like they're having a good time. You know what I mean? And all that. And then really, to be honest with you, I was looking for something to numb me a lot better than weed and drinking. That wasn't strong enough anymore.
Right. And that's the perception is that these people that are out having fun while they're high on cocaine or whatnot, they all have issues that they're getting away from, you know.
Right.
And it's, I guess maybe that's the difference. Like understanding, okay, I had a night of fun, but I can't get sucked into this because I can't just run from my problems every day, you know. And I guess for the drug users that may catch this video or however, because there's a lot of controversy on that. There's a doctor out there now called Dr. Carl Hart, where he wrote a book, and he's a daily. This is a brain surgeon, a neurologist, you know,
Mhm.
and he uses heroin every day, and he advocates for it because he does it responsibly, he does it by dosage, and he's happy doing it. So I don't discourage anybody for what it is that they do. It's just understanding that this can get out of control very fast if it's not understood for what it is, you know?
Right.
And just like yourself, myself, and so many other people that have been fighting lifelong addictions, we use it as an escape tool because it helps us escape, and we never want to go back and face that reality. And then before you know it, 30 years goes by, all our teeth are gone, and we're a completely different person, and we're still running from the same issues.
Right. And I think when on the spiritual sense, when you start realizing what becomes your God, what you start idolizing to to make you whole or whatever. Where that's like, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I guess the thing's like beeping to let me know it might be getting low. But
Mm.
and I'll just switch it off. But yeah, with that being said, it's just that can't be the answer. And for a long time, that was my answer. Oh man, I'm going through this, whatever. Well, let me go get a bag. I'm gonna figure it out, but I gotta go get my bag first. And then if I go get the bag, then I gotta go get the chick, then I gotta go get that drink, then I gotta go get the weed. But I made sure that I made enough money from the club that night to make sure I afforded all those things, with my bills. And I budgeted it for it to be an answer, but it was like, like how you keep a pack of cigarettes. And plus, not only that, I ended up smoking cigarettes for a long time. I started smoking tobacco in high school, but in the military, I went from Black and Miles to Newports or Marlboro Reds. That was just something we always did in the field too. Smoking cigarettes. So I also smoked cigarettes, which I don't anymore. So, so many layers of addictions just for me to deal with myself. And after a while, eventually you gonna hit a different bottom. You know what I'm saying? And mine ended up being, suicide. So
Well, sure, because I mean, you run out of options and you run out of alternatives to escape this dilemma, you know. So, what was it exactly that you were just having the issue with? Was it the fact that you didn't know what to do with your life? You went into the military to kind of show your dad up, and now that didn't happen. So is all of that is what is weighing on you?
yeah, it was a mixture of a whole lot of things, man. I mean, if anything, it was like I didn't know how to cry out for help. You know what I'm saying?
Because you're a killer.
Right. You like, oh, I can do this. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Marine. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna beat this, like everything. But all through them years too, I wasn't. Let me turn this off. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
All right. Yeah. So I wasn't. I wasn't praying at all. Like when I like even reminisce and I think about it, and I can literally now see like the those times
Hmm.
there was like no communication with God at all. Like honestly, none. I would barely even pray for my food. Um, and I see that once down the line, like say when I got to Atlanta and I got locked up in Cobb County, and this wasn't the time that ended up sending me down to prison, but even though that's a different environment to be in, it's something about imprisonment that will humble you. Well, supposed to, but that will humble you. And then if you have it on the inside and you stop exercising, your faith to believe
Mm.
that he has you here for a reason. The one who made you has you here for a reason. It's not, oh, I had to get out of the fact that I'm not here to please my dad. Even though it says to honor my father and mother, so your days will be long on the earth. I'm not here. I'm not here to identify who I am through what they think about me or what anybody does. It's you know, and my thing was like, I know I'm here for a reason. But at the end of the day, what drove me to suicide was like, I'm not doing anything with any substance. I'm not worth living. I don't deserve to live. So, and what was crazy when I would get locked up, I would end up being that prayer call dude. Like, I want to be to myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be bothered. Why am
Prayer
I here?
call, prayer
Prayer call,
call.
prayer call. You know what I'm saying? And I end up being that guy, not even on purpose, but I didn't mind taking up that role to bring hope. I didn't mind it. I accepted it, even everything that came behind it. Sometimes guys wanted to fight that guy. They might have lost,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's no one really likes a spiritual leader in a place like that, especially when you're wearing the same colors as them.
You know,
But
some people, like when you and I were talking about that, you know, some people won't step up to take that leadership role, but they appreciate the the motivation to go. You know, I've had guys that would tell me that if it wasn't for prayer call guy to call out prayer call, they would never go in and pray, but they do because the man calls it. Now, if the man doesn't call it that night, nobody else steps up and, you know, takes the reins and they just take a night off, you know, but I think what it is, it's, you know, we used to make fun of these guys and, you know, yeah, they would go in the prayer call and they would all sit in there and hold hands with each other and pray together and then be fighting with each other the next day, you know, and it just came to realize that it wasn't so much about the religious aspect of it, man. It was just an opportunity for anybody to go and feel love, even for a small moment. Just where everybody was in the room together and it was a positive situation, positive words were being spoken.
right,
Nobody was angry, everybody was humble in that moment. You don't get that in prison, and I'm sure you don't get that too much in the military either. So
right,
it's you know, when I started looking at it like that, you know, and stop calling these people, oh man, you're a hypocrite, this and that. I was the hypocrite. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm judging these people.
right.
And I'm not even really understanding why they're even going in there and doing what it is that they're doing. I'm just assuming, you know, that these people are just fraudulent, you know?
Right.
So,
And what's crazy is that I related to what I do now. You know what I'm saying? And I see it's such a crazy irony with it because before I started doing the support groups now, shout out to the Birdwell Foundation,
mm,
you know, veteran-owned organization, uh, World War II veteran, uh, Christian guy, and being in his vision of being able to supply the support amongst veterans and their families and do it also from a spiritual aspect, you know, encouraging a relationship with Christ to help you with your walk through your traumas, and then serving by giving into communities and helping each other and finding resources for our families to be able to be empowered and to keep us from killing ourselves, literally, because the suicide rate for veterans and even their families, but for veterans, you know what I mean, and all that. I was doing research on the personnel, like while people are still active in the military, they're killing themselves. Some of them don't make it out because they took themselves out before even getting discharged. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous about suicide, man. But
even to
anyway,
this day,
yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, on my show, I started talking about that before our computer blew up. I started giving those numbers out because I was promoting the first week of my group happening and everything. So, you know, I researched those numbers of military personnel in have, have taken their life while they were serving. They, so it also tells you, you know, I mean, there's no help within the inside the military. I mean, or it's not being encouraged to be a part of your life to deal with yourself on a weekly basis while you're doing whatever it is you're doing for this country, or to figure out what's going on with people while they're serving, let alone when they get out and then you don't have no. I mean, good God. I mean, for like the Air Force, I believe it was just the Air Force alone. I think it was like last year, and this is like in the middle of the pandemic. The numbers I saw, it was like 130 something people had killed themselves
mm.
just in the Air Force. I mean, I'm like, okay, well,
I
we're not even
remember
in the
them
Marines.
showing a little bit on the news, but they
Yeah,
they they clipped it off the news quickly. After about the second or third uh, uh, suicide, you didn't hear about it on the news anymore.
yeah, but so I mean, anyway, you know, and I'm just taking all that fact. But as far as you know, what God said to me, you know, when it came up an opportunity to be able to give back Because even what I do right now is volunteer status. You know, I just received my certifications by passing my exams literally not even 30 days ago. And in the midst of even me struggling just to, hold it down for myself, But all in all, he was like, if I could use you while you were in there, while you were an inmate, what makes you think I'm not going to use you when you're out?
Mm.
And I know that it's still my calling to go back in, but in a whole another aspect, not by going in by getting in trouble. Because thank God I just got off a probation officer a couple weeks ago.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, those type of shackles are coming off my ankles now. It's been years I've been on probation. I still got one probation officer left. And I call in once a month, pay my fee, brought my fine down, the spill. But I was like, all right, God, cool. You know what I'm saying? I get that, you know, I get it. So I really had the training of doing what I'm doing now when I was in, and then realized I was going through that spiritual training.
Mm.
I just wanted to be of service, even being an inmate. I just wanted to be of service to my fellow brothers.
Mm.
That was it. Because I needed the hope as well. So I figured if one person's coming up to me and said, "Will you pray with me, bro? Because I don't know if anyone else here wants to pray." Yeah, dude, I'll pray with you, man. I'll pray with you, bro. I'll pray
Do
with
you
you.
think do you think he was doing all of that because like deep down you're just looking for love, you're looking to be appreciated, loved as just a human being and seen as valuable in some sort?
No, I mean a small part, but really, I saw my dad do that for people. No matter how much, what I'm saying, I'd be mad. I was mad at my dad for all this and that or whatever. And then there's no man of God that's perfect.
Mm.
I had to get to that point that my dad he had flaws. I had to grow up to realize that at least my dad wasn't a dope head. My dad didn't drink. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he was a military man. I watched my dad preach the word. Yeah, I mean, overall, I had a good pop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And my dad, I saw him pray with people. I saw my dad be appreciated for giving hope. I
Mm-hmm.
can't complain about having a dad like that, even though he had flaws that people didn't know about. And at the end of the day, I was like, it was because I was trained to do that, even if I didn't like indirectly it being taught, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever. I saw my dad do these things. And so I know that the power of prayer can help people in a present time of trouble or a low space. And I knew that if there's anything you can give anybody, it's just a little bit of your time to care.
Yes.
That could be the biggest thing to somebody, man. That's bigger than winning a Olympic gold medal. You know what
So
I'm saying?
listen,
Especially when you're in prison.
we got Mom Dukes on with us. I don't know how much she knows about this and how much she don't, and how much is this is news to her. So, um, do you want to go into the suicide or?
Yeah, I mean, my mom knows me, man. My mom knows that I'm not ashamed of who I am and who I was because it's all of who I am. My mom, she knows that. And if anything, I know my mom's prayers and her encouraging me to just keep on keeping on is the main reason why I'm here to be able to have this interview and hopefully it reaches and touches somebody, you know what I'm saying, to just keep going.
Mhm.
And so, my mom, she was there for me in my addiction. She was there for me, still is there for me. And me coming out of rehab the first time and just being able to pick up the phone and I could call her even while I was in different rehabs because I've been to about 7 of them.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? In and out here between Georgia. Though I've only been in 2 of them in Florida, But between in Georgia here in Atlanta, man, I've been to the stankiest, raunchiest state ones to the lavish ones for private insurance. You know, so nah, I don't mind that. It was a scene from Godfather I saw. I don't remember which one. When dude slit his wrist while he was in the tub. You
Mm-hmm.
remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Godfather. Is that the second Godfather?
I
Or
can't remember, man. It's been so long since I watched those, man. I think
but
it was the
anyway,
first one. You're talking about yeah, I think it was the first one.
yeah, when he was in the tub and he slit his wrist, it was like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which one it was, but that triggered me to go ahead and try it out that way because I tried the pills and the drinking, but that didn't work. I literally woke up and I was, oh my man, my kidneys were, I had the pains in my side, but I was just like, dang, it didn't work. I
So
really
you
said
so
it.
you tried multiple times.
Yeah, yeah, just nobody knew.
So
They just
the first time was when?
The first time was still in '07. They were really within a month apart. I did it in the same month. It's just the one when I slit my wrist in my dad's bathroom was, of course, physically done and could be seen on the outside. And of course, uh, was found. I want to say I was found by this dude Taz that was also somebody I worked with at that time and who stayed for a little bit with us and then didn't anymore. And I really, it's kind of blurry. I can't remember. Then I do know eventually my dad ended up showing up, and then my wrists were wrapped up, and I ended up on an ambulance. But I also remember my dad saying he was embarrassed.
Mm.
He said he didn't say that, but I know he did. But he also has apologized for it if he said it and he didn't remember. But I heard that faintly when the people were, EMT was asking him like, who is this your son or why did this happen? And I heard him saying like, I don't know why he did this and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there was a scene, because people know people who do know my dad, they know he's a man of God and stuff like that. So I'm sure yeah, it was embarrassing for him, but whatever. I didn't care at that time, but obviously even around that time, he visited me for a short period of time one time. So I didn't know. I don't think he really understood how to take that, and he was probably still dealing with his own stuff.
Yeah.
But still. So yeah, that's how that happened. But my baby brother, man, shout out to my baby brother, Integrity Insurance. But my baby brother, man, I'm so proud of him. He came and visited me while I was at Baker acted, and he said to me something that always stuck. He said, "Big bro," he was like, "Big bro, I love you, man." He was like, "You're still my hero." And what I don't understand how you could do this to yourself and how you did it, but the same drive that it took you to do it, if you take that same drive that I know you have and you apply it to something positive, it's limitless. And what
That's
my
what your
baby
brother
brother,
said to you.
my baby brother said that to me, and I promised him I wouldn't do it again. I promised God that I wouldn't do that to myself again, no matter how hard it got for me. And I've never tried to kill myself ever again, and I won't.
Mm.
And then, I got a beautiful son now. He's 5 years old. I wouldn't, I mean, if I had actually, did that successfully, uh, I would have never had my son.
Mm. So a- uh, afterwards, you made this promise to yourself that you were never going to do that again. But would those feelings still arise in you? Would you still feel like you could go to that place if you allowed it? Was the root problem being solved?
No, that was just tip of the iceberg, but I knew that I would, that was my way of saying, all right, God, what I'll do is I won't go that far.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I won't go that far. You take me when you want, but I'll just try to get better.
So what did you do? What did you do when you got to that same point to where in the past you would have thought about committing suicide, but now you're thinking about what? I mean, help the people that are in that same position alter their thought process. How did you go from not thinking about suicide and applying it somewhere else?
Obviously, the training had to keep going. I had to understand the system, just like how me and you understand the systems because we became a part of it.
Right.
And so, me being labeled then as once I did the counseling and everything, and the psychiatrist and all that, and even being put on drugs, you know, with all these side effects, which also a lot of times can give you the suicidal thoughts as well.
Hmm.
The antipsychotics and all. But because then you're just a guinea pig, you're just an experiment, and that's one thing.
I was on
We
Prozac for 3 weeks, man.
Prozac for 3 weeks. Well, hey, you
After
know,
about the second and a half week, I started contemplating suicide because and I'm not a person that thinks about that, you
right?
know. But the Prozac altered my thought process and numbed me down so much that I just didn't even want to live. I was like a zombie. I couldn't think. I was sluggish. I just wasn't myself. And I and I
Yeah,
and I got off it.
I've been Seroquel, Depakote, Prozac, uh, so many others, lithium,
Mm. Boy, you on that hard stuff, boy.
Trazodone, Yeah, all the stuff that'll get you Zuzu and Wham Whams in prison because everybody would rather just sleep their time away.
Yep, and that's what
I
they
couldn't,
call
I,
them.
I couldn't even
Zuzus and
go.
wham whams.
I couldn't go to the store all the time, so I had to have a hustle.
Yeah.
So, I had to cup the pill in the mouth to break it down into little milligrams to sell it it's like some dope,
And then
just
people
so I
buy it
could,
up.
just so I can have me a little, icy white honey bun, or have me a nice, pocket.
I ran numbers, man. That was my hustle. I ran
Yeah,
numbers for the
man.
bookie,
That
man.
and making Bombays and stuff with the stuff in there. I could make a Bombay and crush the Seroquel or put the powder of anything in there and whip it, and that be in your drink. So they get the high and come down and crash so good and go to sleep.
Mm.
But anyway, yeah, man. So you go in through the system and you go to these rehabs and you see how the case managers worked and how the group therapy works, how the one-on-ones work, and where the flaws are in the system, and then you're mostly talking to people who are just educated with degrees that only, say I empathize with you. You don't relate,
Hmm.
you know, uh, you, and they always asking the same questions over again. After a while, you've been on so much drugs, you can't remember how you answered maybe a last time or so many years ago. Because I mean, after a while, it's just this vicious mental up and down, just cycle of trying to, get out of it. They don't promote really spirituality. I mean, it's really about of God, of how you know Him, or they want to push the dope so much.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? To have you not really function, so you could just be an easy check, 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 check. Seems like
Push the
more
dope.
calm.
Push the dope.
He's right. He's eating now because the dope is making him eat. But I'm
Right.
not eating anything healthy. It's giving me the munchies. I want to have sweets all the time. I'm gaining weight that is out of my control. I don't want to work out anymore. I can barely remember what I'm reading or writing or any conversation I'm having, let alone that makes me an insufficient husband, which now she hates me because I look like I'm weak to her because I'm supposed to be a strong black man, but now she feels like she's got to take care of stuff. On top of that, I'm on probation and everything else.
Mm. Do you feel like it? I mean, do you feel like anybody ever cared? Do you feel like they would? Yeah, they're giving you the medication or whatnot, but Did you ever feel that somebody truly cared for Mordecai and his issues?
Gotta slide one or three in there. There's always somebody that
Is a beacon.
God, that God will put in your path that will be able to relate, and then they're not even the counselor. They could be the cafeteria lady.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It could have been the people that just monitor you every day to make sure lights out and stuff like that. It's never the professional. It's never the professional. It's definitely never the doctor. There's so many doctors I wish I could smack.
Mm.
But you know, it wasn't worth getting locked up over. But yeah, there's so many doctors I wish I could smack. I mean, I really feel like if I had doctor in front of my name, that I would just do a way better job than them. And I definitely wouldn't push certain drugs. I'd be against it. Just because you have the power to distribute doesn't mean you just do.
Again, like everything else, man, it's in moderation. I don't take pills.
Right,
I do not
right,
take pills. I'm not taking no vaccine. I don't take pills. I don't take nothing these people give me because I know the agenda behind it. And it's not for care and it's not for betterment. You know,
right.
if you see me take a pill like an aspirin or an ibuprofen or something like that, man, I am in serious, serious pain. Almost damn near ready to go to the hospital, and I just want the pain to stop now. Other than
Right.
that, I just try to let my body work through it. You know, I focus on it, I concentrate on it, I meditate on it, I pray on it. 9 times out of 10, that's all it is, and that's all you need.
And really the weed is cool. You know what I mean?
And
Like
the
I
weed is
like
cool.
smoking weed, but then when the probation officers and they piss testing you like crazy and they putting them stipulations on you, but then they'll go ahead and make it okay for whatever the prescription drugs that a doctor would give you,
Yeah,
or all
yeah,
right, because okay, that's prescribed. But if you piss hot for weed, you're going to jail. You know what
right.
I'm saying? So, um, even during the pandemic, I wasn't able to get the pills I needed to my house. I mean, the pandemic stripped it all to where I had to depend on prayer, aftercare counseling, just to say I did it, even for probation, but to at least get out something, and then reading the word, and then reaching out to the healthier people in my circle now, and completely not even talking to anybody who just wasn't even positive towards me at all. I mean, my wife is not the most positive to me, but her being the mother of my child, that holds a piece to me feeling more alive. And but it's not her, it's my son. My son sees this great man. He sees his daddy-o. And there's something about knowing that being daddy-o, that or even when there was a disconnect where I couldn't see or talk to my son, but knowing that I'm going to make sure I take care of myself the best I can and become better, because there is someone that I have brought into this world that believes in me.
Mm.
So, I'm not on coke now. It's been almost 5 years now. I haven't been on cocaine. Antipsychotic wise, I get those pills delivered, but I ain't taking them. I have a claim, and you got to have certain things on paper to say. Um, Weed, haven't. I just got off probation, but I still haven't smoked.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Um, but it's been like over a year now. I haven't. Um, Cigarettes, stopped smoking last year around February. Um, and the stresses I'm going through right now, I really already know that a lot of that is not going to help me. So, I mean, as far as tapping into my network and then me being responsible to my group and knowing that I'm helping others and that others are the ones that are non-judge, they don't judge and all. We're just healthy, trying to still do what we do. but we're trying to stay efficient in my one-on-one counselings. I do that myself with the VA. I have a chaplain I talk to. I have a counselor I talk to. You know, I always, find time to talk to my mom because she's just positive and I love her, and I know she loves me. My baby brother, but just having a better, and I work out. I try to, I go to the gym now at least 3 times a week. I didn't make it 3 times this week, but twice on the worst case scenario. But just now dealing with things on a more positive coping level and knowing that it can be done, and then just helping people along the way. Uh, I just choose, it just gets easier to choose the higher ladder, even if the ladder's a little short. It's higher than where I know I don't need to go.
Right.
And then I have my podcast. My podcast is like, haven't been able to do it, but like my podcast and knowing, see how the power of God works through that with people, interacting and being touched by my story.
Yeah.
Helps.
No, there's a lot of people out there, man, that need to hear what you've gone through, how you've survived these things, and that's why I guess I want to probe you on these, because you're borderline. You're borderline between life and death. You're skating on that thin ice, and I guess I'm just trying to see what that small little featherweight was that just kept you barely to the life side. You know what I'm saying? Until that light hit, and you realize, like, I'm Mordecai. Do you know what that means? Do you know what Mordecai means? You know what I mean? And things change, because the person I see now is nothing what I've heard has been, So I'm meeting two different people,
Yeah.
you know, and for me, man, I mean, that damn near brings me to tears, because I know the struggle that we go through as human beings, man. Nobody wants to be bad. Nobody wants to go to jail. Nobody wants to be an addict. Nobody wants these things. We just don't know how to handle, or or put together these puzzles that are put in front of us every day, because we just
Right.
wasn't given the skill set to do so. you know. And people can say, "Oh, you're blaming your parents for this, you're blaming your parents for that." That's not what it's about. It's about ownership, and it's about understanding what parenting is, right? Parenting isn't just having children. Parenting is having children and teaching these children how to best survive in the game of life. And if we don't have that skill set, we're gonna fail miserably, because when we leave that house, as you found out going into boot camp, nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about you, not one person. When you leave that house, and this is how I think of my daughter, and I try to prepare my daughter, like, Chris Rock says it best in his comedy. Like, when son, when you leave this house, don't nobody give a shit about you. And that's the truth. They're gonna act like they do because they want something you have, you
Right,
know.
right.
And as long as you're providing whatever it is, you could just be making them feel good. But somebody always wants something, and that's why they're around, And we learn this, and it crushes us, because somebody like you, somebody like me, millions of others, we just want to feel appreciated. We want to feel recognized, and know that we're just cool. We're not nerds or dweebs or whatever, but, like, we're cool for what we like, you know.
Right. Cool for what we like, cool for what we wear. You know what I'm saying?
And I
Cool
don't
even for
have to
the
dress like you. I don't have to act like you for you to
right.
like me. You just like me because you just like me.
Well, not only that, even when it comes to doing drugs, what I'm saying? It's almost like I'm cool because we both do coke, you know what I'm saying? Or I'm cool because we both can go half on the 8 ball, or
Right.
whatever, you know what I'm saying? Whatever your vice is, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I got on whippets a few times. I was like, well, God. You know, but never anything like beyond that. But I have friends that did that I saw that weren't even cigarette smokers and then end up going down heroin and all this other stuff, and they passed away and they overdosed and didn't even get to see 25,
It's crazy.
maybe not even 21 and stuff. And then here I am. I'm like, man, God, I'm still here. You know what I mean? Even the last time I did cocaine, it was the night where I got tased by two officers. They didn't know I was high. I was really being calm. I understood the provokingness of me needing to be calm or whatever. They said there were veterans, try to make the situation seem like it was a comfortable situation. But then they infiltrated the ambulance at a 1013, and I thought it was a gun, but it was a taser. But before you know it, one thing about that military training, if you feel like you're in a threat, sometimes you may feel like you forgot something. You ain't forgot it. I disarmed that officer so quick and pushed him out the back of that ambulance. Before I know it, another one came in behind me, choking me. And then I disarmed him and pushed him out so far. He claimed his arms were fractured his shoulder or something in the report. But then when I tried to run, because really my son was 5 months that night. He was 5 months. And I went out. And instead of coming right back home, I stopped and got high, and I shouldn't have. I was actually, clean for like 30 days, and I shouldn't have. I don't know why I went and got high. I know why, but I was like, damn. Well, anyway, when it happened, it was like it was in the parking lot of the shelter where I was homeless at like years ago. But I went there because subconsciously, I go, this place is safe. And he said he was going to call the police because I said I was off my meds. And I wasn't on my meds, but I used that instead of just saying, oh, I was high on cocaine. I was tripping. So, but I was also having like flashbacks. Like my mind was gone. To this day, I don't even think it probably was mixed with something else, to be honest, because I never had the type of trip with coke. And I just trusted the person I got it from. But anyway, when they got there, and then after all that happened and I tried to run, the first officer hit me first, and then the other officer was like, hit him again. So two officers tased me at the same time and picked me up and slammed me on my face. And then the EMT lady was like, I need to check his heart. You just tased him and whatever. And they smacked me on the face and said, that nigga's still breathing.
That's what the cop said.
Yeah. But that was the last night I did coke, bro. Ain't touched it since September 8th.
That's good, partner.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, do you ever feel like there's something you want to go back to? Do you ever have any urges, triggers, or anything that you notice is around you that makes you think about it?
I really would like to smoke weed sometimes because it chills me out. I have a different elevation of silliness and funny if it's around the right people, or even if it's just with myself. I feel like it opens up my creativeness a little bit more, but I really just like the way it slows my mind down because my mind just moves at such a rapid rate that at times seems hard to control, and I can't even explain why it just always does, which to be honest with you, I know it's only the power of God that what I'm going through right now personally, and that I'm able to not turn around and just go off to the races is a miracle. And in a way, I'm challenging myself to just dig deeper in faith to see if it's really that real, to have a peace more than the norm, or even just when you want it, or as you're going throughout the day and dealing with other people and all that. I'm really trying it to see if it's possible, and I'm seeing that it is. But at times, I do really feel like I would like to smoke weed again, or even the CBD. I've tried a lot of the CBD drops and things, and it works. I think that's a good thing thus far from just personal experience.
You need to move to Florida, man. Come get your MMU card.
Matter of fact, my wife put it out to somebody about me getting the medical card here. I got the email yesterday.
Does Georgia have it? Can you get the medical card in Georgia?
Yeah, but there's only like one person that's doing it throughout the whole state.
One
But
person in the state.
one person in the state that's doing that or whatever, and we just happen to just have a good connection with somebody that has a that has two pharmacies that's able to provide that, and they really using it too, really for me because they know I'm a veteran.
Right. Now, how would that affect probation?
Oh well, the probation actually that I got off of that it would have affected them. Now the probation I'm on now, where I'm at low risk, and I call in, they don't piss test me. They just want me to call in on time and give them some every month.
Mm.
But they on my restrictions on that, they don't have the CBD restriction. The last probation that I had, it was nothing, even CBD. Because I
Mm.
told my probation officer I took CBD for a whole month, and she's like, "Well, I'm not going to violate you because you didn't know." But
Mm.
she's like, "It's in your special conditions. You can't have CBD because it has a hint of THC in it, and we'll be
People
able to detect it."
ridiculous, man.
Yeah, so I didn't, but I'm just saying, if I did it now and me even having the medical card, and be able to do some CBD or get the oil and stuff like that, actually, if it'll keep me healthy, I'm willing to do it.
So, what's your biggest hurdle today? Where's Mordecai at today? Where's your vision at? You know, um, what is it that you need today? I guess just who is Mordecai now? You know.
I'm definitely the person that God showed me in jail that I would be, but it's on a small scale still. Um, of course, like a lot of people out there are having financial issues and situations, and also dealing with trying to uh, hold on to a marriage that's challenging to hold on to, which trying to do that feels unhealthy for me. Um, but we're doing counseling now. Um, so I'm still that warrior, and that's what Mordecai stands for, is warrior. Uh, One of the meanings of it, and then Mordecai in the Bible being a man of the people. So I do quite a bit of community service. Just about a month ago, I said I stopped doing the food boxes that I was giving out in Atlanta. I was doing like food box Tuesdays, but I had access through the partnership or foundation with a church where a veteran is a pastor, and they were getting 1,400 food boxes in a week, and being able to get back. I killed my van obviously because now I don't have a vehicle anymore because my van motor died, but that van served a lot of people in this city. Uh,
The city
and
of
and then
Atlanta.
the city of Atlanta, yes, in different ways because I would just gas up, after work. I gas up at the job I can't go back to right now because of doctor's orders, but I gas up after work every Tuesday, go pick those boxes up, man, and go run 32 somewhere different,
Mm.
somewhere different. Or I had drops because I developed relationships with people in apartment complexes to be able to drop 8 to 9 or just come there and let loose and empty them out. And if I could make it, then I would make a second trip. But most of the time, it was just to do 32 boxes, 33 boxes to 60 boxes a week, and that was my thing, and I really enjoyed doing that.
You still do that now?
No, the government cut that program, so it wasn't up to the church. It was the Biden administration that cut that program for the USDA boxes to be still be able to have access to, so that families out here can eat, and that was stupid.
The
But
Biden administration, not this Biden administration, not for the people Biden.
yeah, well, they according to the church, they said it was a political thing because the program was actually done under the Trump administration, and so they cut it. And I still get people calling me right now asking for those boxes. There's about 7 different apartment complexes that I was serving with that, from Cartersville all the way down to Riverdale, Georgia. You know what
Well,
I'm
the hunger
saying?
don't stop. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, the hunger don't stop. You know what I mean? And if I had the money or wealth, I'd be doing it myself in some type of aspect. But the church is still trying to find different ways to raise money to do things, and they're they're trying to get some things done, to
How
wherever they
much
can
how
get.
much money you talking about? How much would it take to get that back up and running?
I really don't know, man. I haven't done the calculations, and I'm not even on that church board, or I haven't done the numbers. I know my mom had told me that there was a lady, or my cousin had told me too, that there was a lady up there in Evansville, Indiana. I guess she does the Feed Evansville, and that lady had to raise $20,000 just to be able to, put food out into the community. So I
Mm.
mean, I can only imagine, they were just really in Douglasville, but I was taking the food from that church, driving from Douglasville and then driving into Mechanicsville, or I drive into anywhere that needed it. I go in Clayton County. I go right here where I'm at. I'm in Southwest Atlanta right now, is where Aaron is. I'm right here by Fairburn Road or Old Cascade, and I go off of MLK. You know what I'm saying? And go in these apartment complexes I never even been in, but they know me as the food box guy.
Mm.
I still call those people up too, just to holler at them and see how they're doing and check up on them. The ones who I have the number, and then they appreciate that I even just call and check up on them, even though I'm not bringing food. But in all these churches around here, you know. But as far as who I am, I'm working on maintaining my sober mind. That way, the wisdom that I ask for can be downloaded and I can put it to use. I'm definitely a loving father. I love my wife no matter what the feelings are and how things are going to work out. Um, but I'm proud of who I am from where I'm not anymore. I'm a good friend to people,
Mhm.
and I'm a better brother. My brother just left here, from being here a few days ago, for the past few days. And my brother also wrote an email from prison saying how he's inspired and knowing that even when he does get out, because we're believing that he will get out, and whatever I have to do to advocate to help that happen, I'm willing to. But that because of me changing, it inspires him that you can have a life after being incarcerated. And so at least I'm bringing some hope to my brother. Um, and I'm just here to help anyone I come in contact with who's
Well,
dealt with issues.
give the people your sites, how to get a hold of you. Um,
Yeah, so if you guys ever want to check me, you can go to www.mordecai.live. You can also go to Perkai Investments on Instagram or Pure Properties as well. Mordecai Miller on Facebook. My email also is mordecai.miller@birdwellfoundation.org. You can catch me at Peachtree Corners, uh, Georgia, on Thursday nights from 6:30 to 8. I do go into 8:30 range, but for peer support, counseling, if you're dealing with PTSD, trauma, mental health, substance abuse, you want somewhere safe to talk about what's going on. It's free at no cost. Veterans and their families, and first responders and their families, or just anyone who has that situation. If you need treatment, um, and even if you have insurance, we can get you into retreat behavioral rehab, which we have a partnership on that's all along the East Coast. So inpatient or outpatient accountability services that you need. I'm currently about to finish up now. Thank God for Thomas putting me on with a brother named Lee Robbins, who's doing a lot of big things with reentry
mhm.
for incarcerated people re-entering men, but working on the women as well. But as far as me talking about the brothers, um, and I mean brothers, period. I'm not talking about just me as a black man.
Mhm.
But as far as you coming out of incarceration and needing life coaching, and also needing the resources to be able to, uh, to build your life back, whether it be with jobs, whether it be with housing, whether it be with becoming an influence in society, so that we can empower each other and help keep all these things from happening to us for unnecessary reasons, or just being able to rehabilitate after our bad decisions or messed up situations that we've been put into or we've created for ourselves. So yeah, y'all check me out. Spiritual Rehab by Mordecai is on iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcasts. That's my radio show. I'm on those platforms. Me and Brother Worship, we just want to uplift people. And then also I use that for advertising, businesses that are doing great things or people who want to come on and talk, as well as like what Thomas is doing with me right now. We're currently can't get in the studio because of lack of equipment. Um, and if anybody out there want me to try to be an extra in something, like my brother Thomas here, I mean, I'm available. I don't look all ugly and dark and gloomy like I used to when I was out there on that stuff.
Yeah.
So, if my looks can get me somewhere to open up other doors for other people, I use that. It's just a blessing to be here still and be able to have this opportunity to be with my brother Thomas. And I believe that me and him are going to do some big things together. And I really respect what you do, brother. I mean, when we get out, everybody always says you can't forget those inside. And I feel like, what me and you are doing right now is a representation of that. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of grunting, a lot of labor, to help these souls get saved. But, I believe that you're part of the mission, man. And we just, we can do this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Ain't
We
no
can do this.
question, man. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate you saying those things, brother. And for me, it's just about truth. I sit back and I watch a lot of these prison shows. These guys got these shows, man, and they're just false prophets. As anything else, you're always going to deal with false prophets. And these guys are out here collecting money from people under the pretense that they're doing things for prisoners, but they're exploiting the prison experience so they can get likes and subscribes and get a little bit of money, that way. And I don't like that,
And some of
because
them never even been inside, bro.
some of them never been inside. They've been inside for a minute. They're trying to portray that they're hardened killing
Yeah.
criminals. And
Yeah,
but the
man.
point of it is that they're taking the money, exploiting all of this, and none of it is going back into it. From these
Right.
guys, they're just not doing. There is a few. I do want to give a shout out to Chad Marks, his station, because he does a lot. He's gotten people out of prison. Blood on the Razor Wire. That's his show, and that's what he does. So there are guys that are out there like me that are just trying to get the truth out of what goes on inside a prison, and then you have false prophets as well. So
Right.
it's more along the lines of, I just want people to know the truth, man, because you know there are innocent people that are locked away in prison. There are people that
Yeah.
did charges and locked away in prison, but they got an exorbitant amount of time and they need to come home. The point is that we have to bring these guys home. A lot of people are in prison just because they had an addiction problem, a mental health problem. There's 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 so much that we can do. And
And And excuse me, Thomas, you said that because, there's this law they have, like I know here in Georgia, talking about rehabilitation before incarceration. And it's like they do, they only let that law apply to certain people, or they pick and choose, or it's definitely the people who are paying for their good lawyers. You know what I'm saying?
sure,
Or these mental health courts and all that, which is really just to rig you to get back in anyway, because they know, like, if you're going to, just because of your mental health, you're not going to make the right decisions constantly, and consistently. But then the lack of resources are there on where you need to go in order to be able to make sure your choices are better and smarter. You know what I mean? And so my thing is now I want to bring awareness to that on any level that God presents for me to be on these platforms I'm on. Shout out to Birdwell Foundation because as far as everything that we're doing is just to eliminate that suicide rate, amongst those who serve the country and their families that suffer with them. You know what I mean? And I mean the first responders. I thought about how I thought it was kind of funny now that I'm doing the groups for the people that tased me, and then I'm going to have the heart of forgiveness to be like, you probably did that because even if you were a veteran, because of you have the mentality of that one, either whether you're racist or not, I can't label that. I don't know that individual, but the fact that the violent streak in you allowed you to make it seem like it was okay to abuse your power.
hmm
And then on top of that, if you are racist, or being a black man was just an easy target, and you're probably pissed off you didn't kill me that night, but you're probably cool that you did it because ain't no telling what you're gonna do when you hurt a child of God like me. I mean, I understand that. I understand how favored I am. I understand that I have a mission, and I know that God's angels surround me. and anyone that, you know what I'm saying, I'm connected to, that we, you know, they're covered as well. You know, I pray for that. I pray for your covering, or anyone that deals with me, because he'll try to attack every body of the movement. You know what I'm saying, when it comes to bringing out truth and everything like that. But I'm willing to die for that. I'm willing to die for this truth. You
And
know.
and that's the thing, you know, you have people like what's her name, Candace Parker, I think her name is, or whatever it is. But you have these individuals out here, and they make a lot of good points, and they're very educated people, and they say a lot of educated things, but then sometimes they don't, you know. And you have a lot of people out there that are stuck on George Floyd and him being a criminal. You know, why are we praising a criminal? Why martyr a criminal and things of that nature? One, they're not understanding, you know, truly what that whole thing represented. And two, people seem to forget that God favored the criminal. God favored the prisoner, right? God, Jesus was always around these individuals because
Right.
those were the ones that needed help. The ones that were saved were already saved. He
Right.
didn't surround himself with saved people. He
Right.
surrounded himself with the people that needed him the most, and he understood that. He didn't judge them, right? He understood them, that they were people that are filled with love. They're just misunderstood, you know.
Right.
So
Amen.
why people want to sit around and criticize and minimize our life experience, or say that we're just not worth as much martyrism, or as much love from other people, because we're convicted criminals, or we're drug abusers, or things of that nature, right? We're humans, and we love, and we want to be loved, and we just have a hard time dealing with certain issues that others may not. So, Mordecai, man, thank you for opening your life. Thank you for sharing these things. We do have a lot of things coming. You're part of the team now, brother. You're on the Free Me team, man.
Won't free me.
You know what
Yeah,
I'm
man.
saying? And my mission is to unite America. My mission is to bring all of us together, just like how you and I came together and joined up. My mission is to bring all of us together as American citizens, understanding that we all have our own issues, our own experiences, and it's how can I help you with yours, brother? This is how you can help me with mine. How can I help you
Right.
with yours? I don't have to agree with everything that you say. You know what I
Right.
mean? I don't have to agree with everything that you say, but I still love you because you're a struggling human being. You're an American citizen. You went in to sacrifice your life for our freedom, right? And and there's nothing else to say after that. Your ideologies, your personal, the way you want to live your personal life has no infliction on me. You know, it has none. So it's just bringing all of this together, loving one another, and understanding that we have a common enemy. And in order to take this common enemy down, we have to be together. You know, we
Yeah.
have to come together. So, this is why I do this, partner. You know, this is why I do this. So, I appreciate you, you know, for blessing my channel with your story and coming on. And I wish you many blessings, man. And we're gonna see much more of you.
Yeah, man. Most definitely, bro. I appreciate you, man. This is actually a very free feeling. You know what I mean? Because all I want to do is share it.
Hey,
And
man, and I'm here for you. If you ever need Mordecai, and I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart, if you ever need a platform, you ever, you know, listen, Thomas, I need to talk. Let's go on live, or just talk to me personally. I'm here for you, partner. I really am.
share it, man. Yeah, yeah. Same here, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's all good, man. For real. Same here, man. I thank God that right now, you know what I'm saying, I'm not working, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I have a job, and it's just, I got to wait on this disability and stuff, but it's been never to I've had more time to be able to connect with people and listen and share, and the price of it is not in what I'm not even making. It's been that they can have a smile, or they can release, and be open, and they know I relate. You know, I'm not just sitting there just, acting. I can really relate, and you
Hmm.
know, I really like connecting with people, and really trying to understand how to help heal their heart by letting them feel mine. So I appreciate this a lot, man. It means a whole lot to me, and what I'm going through. This really makes me feel more alive, and the fact that my mother could watch me like this
Mom Dukes.
is, is even more rewarding than anything, man. You know, I've always really wanted to make my mother proud too, because she has the right to see that,
No
and
question.
she has a lot to do with why I'm here, and I know that she's gonna be a whole lot more I'm gonna do, and I pray that you just continue to live long enough to see me do bigger things than even just this. But I know now that she's proud of me, and I thank God for that.
Yeah, man, we're gonna buy Mom Dukes a house, man. We're gonna buy Mom
Oh
Dukes a
yeah,
house.
man.
You know what I'm
And a
saying?
Mercedes to go with it, man.
And a Mercedes will go with it, man. We're gonna do it, partner. These are my
Yeah.
goals, and it ain't gonna stop because money breeds power, and I understand that, and we need power to take down these individuals that is oppressing us, man. So,
And you know what? I gotta say this. I'm proud of my mom, man. My mom's been through a lot
mhm,
since her and my father divorced, and I know we gotta go. But I wanted to say this, that my mom coming up in July, we got this District 8 president installation thing ceremony of celebrating the position that she's been nominated for, and she's decided to take it on. She's been working in the auxiliary unit and everything with the American Legion for years. Married to a warrior, they do a lot of things for the community. And also the fact that her One Faith, One Love organization, which is nonprofit as well. And I know my mom's vision is to have, like group homes,
mhm,
and then also her One Elegance, One Grace .com. My mom's has very good apparel. She has a nice online store with good clothes and nice classy wear for men and women.
mhm.
But to see her be able to walk into her entrepreneurship, she also does insurance as well. But I'm just really proud of her rising above all that she went through, which was inspiration to just keep going as well. So I wanted to honor her and just saying that my mom's doing wonderful and big things in Evansville, Indiana, all the way up through Indianapolis, Indiana, and um, you know that's a beautiful thing.
No question, man. Y'all go support moms, man. Give the websites to her organization again.
Yes, oneeleganceonegrace.com and onefaithoneLove.com as well. Her name is Diana Van Hooks.
Mm,
And she's she'll clothe you, with love, but she can also clothe you with wonderful apparel for men and women on her site. Great prices. I'm pretty sure she's still using that code called worship,
mhm,
which will give
mhm.
you 15% off. She got that from Brother Worship on my show, but yeah, the code is worship, so you get 15% off on your whole entire purchase. You go shop on the store, whatnot, and take advantage of that. So, yeah, man, Mom, I love you, and I appreciate you, and I'm going to keep doing big things, and I love you.
Yeah. Have faith, Ma. We're gonna do it. We're gonna rise up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Mordecai, till I see you again, partner. You take care, man. Be your best self, partner. Put smiles on people's face. But like I told you that day, right? Always remember, you come first. Mordecai comes first. Mordecai can't help people if Mordecai isn't helped. You understand what I'm saying? So each morning, what I tell you, do your affirmations in the morning, brother. Have you
Yeah.
looked yourself in the face and told yourself that you love you?
Oh yeah, definitely, bro. Especially that cut. I looked in the mirror today. I
Ah,
said, dang, I was like, man, Mordecai, you handsome today, bro. Like
that's
you handsome
ego.
today,
I'm not
man.
talking about ego. I'm not talking about
no,
ego.
I'm messing with you, bro. But no, I mean, I did look at myself in the mirror today, and definitely, told myself this was gonna be a great show. I told myself that, you are looking good, man. I mean, there was times, God, man, I couldn't even look at myself.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So, ego aside, most definitely. But I'm glad I could look at myself and say, man, you looking healthy, man.
Yeah. And that's what we need to do every day, man. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to get in there. Again, you're not looking at your, and I know you were just jeffing, but
Right,
you
right,
know, it's not okay to sit there and talk about how beautiful you are as you're shaping your beard, or you're putting on your mascara and things of that nature. It's looking yourself in the eyes and seeing nothing physical, but looking in your
right,
pupils, looking deep into your soul and telling
right,
your
right, right,
soul
right,
that you
right,
love yourself. You
right,
know what I mean? That's the difference. When you're looking at your features, talking about you love yourself, that's ego. When you're
right,
looking in
right,
your eyes and you're telling your spirit, your soul, that you love who you are, that's God. And always speak through God. So until the next time, brother, man, I love you. Take care, man. If you need me, I'm here for you, okay?
Bless, man. I appreciate you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Free Me TV. Y'all keep supporting.